Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. All right, everybody, I'm back. Good to be back. So want to go ahead and get to some late breaking college hoops recruiting news. And if you listen to the most recent Aaron Torres pod, we mentioned this is going to be a busy couple weeks and months in college hoops recruiting. Summer stuff is done. Players are cutting lists. They're setting up visits and they are making commitments. At the same time, I also mentioned that Friday was going to be an especially important day because one of the top high school players in America was set to commit. That player, Darius Acuff, 5-star guard, class of 2025. So he's a rising senior. He'll be a senior this coming season. Originally from Detroit, played at IMG Academy, but this is a top 5 prospect in the class of 2025. Well, as I mentioned, he is a player that had cut his list, was ready to commit on Friday. He was down to 3 schools: the home state school of Michigan, the Wolverines; Kansas, of course, coached by Hall of Famer Bill Self; Arkansas, coached by a Hall of Famer in John Calipari. Well, just moments ago, Darius Acuff made his college announcement, and it becomes official. How about this? He commits to the Arkansas Razorbacks and John Calipari. That's right. John Calipari not only gets his first major commitment in the class of 2025, but really the first major high school commitment that wasn't previously committed to him at Kentucky. He brought 3 recruits, 3 high-profile recruits in the class of 2024 that were committed to Kentucky. But this is the first one in 2025, had never been committed to Kentucky. And let me say this. If you're reading the tea leaves on the class of 2025, I don't think this is going to be the last 5-star. And so with it, I just got one very simple question for you. And that is this. Can anything stop the Big Pig invasion? That's right. Can anything stop the Big Pig invasion? You can see on your screen. You can see on your screen that we have t-shirts available. AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. That's right. The Big Pig invasion tee. AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. All right, let's go ahead and get into the commitment. Because listen, I'll say this is that to me, love the fit between player, coach, system, and program. That's right. I was going to get it right, but then I got it wrong, but then I got it right again. Anyway, love the fit. Let me explain why. First of all, credit Cal, because, listen, this is a guy that he identified from the beginning in the class of 2025, a player that he wanted, a player that he was in on early in the Kentucky days. He kept that relationship going. Now, a couple things. Let me say this is I do think he caught some breaks along the way, and sometimes you just do in recruiting, okay? That's just the reality. That's not a knock on Cal. But I think Acuff was very comfortable with the previous Michigan coaching staff, Juwan Howard. And look, bottom line is that, listen, coaches get fired. This isn't a knock on Dusty May, but Dusty May doesn't get in until April. This kid commits in August. There just wasn't enough time for Michigan to make up ground. Kansas, obviously, when you're recruiting against Bill Self, you're swimming in the deep end with sharks, but they seem to have prioritized Darren Peterson, a 5-star guard who admittedly has ties to Adidas. Kansas is an Adidas school. I'm not saying one player is better than the other, but when Darren Peterson trends toward Kansas, that kind of eliminates them as well. And so I bring it up because it's not to say that Coach Cal doesn't deserve credit for closing, but at the same time, this is a mega commitment. And I think, like I said a minute ago, the player fit with Coach Cal makes sense as well. One, Darius Acuff, talking to people around him, he is a player who bluntly, I think always kind of viewed himself as a blue blood type player. And I know Arkansas isn't a historic traditional blue blood, although they have a national championship in my lifetime. But I think the opportunity to play for Coach Cal, who has put so many guys like him in the pros, it was too good to pass up. And for people who haven't seen him play, man, he is the quintessential Coach Cal guard. 6'2", 6'3", great attacker of the rim, super athletic, gets to the rim, great with the ball, it gets others involved. And so he is just the prototypical Coach Cal guard. Reminds me, listen, whatever. We know who the Coach Cal guards are. Derrick Rose, John Wall, Tyrese Maxey, De'Aaron Fox. And I'm not saying he's going to be an NBA All-Star. Derrick Rose was a league MVP. That's not what I'm saying. But the same kind of player. And I think he was drawn to the fact that Coach Cal puts the ball in the hands of freshmen. This year, even at Kentucky, it was DJ Wagner, it was Reed Shepherd, it was Rob Dillingham. If you're a freshman and you're ready to go, then guess what? Coach Cal's going to let you cook, and it has obviously led to a lot of success for him as a head coach, but then also beyond that, it has led to a lot of players being in great position when they enter the NBA. I think what is more interesting than just the fact that Darius Acuff has committed is the fact that I don't think Coach Cal is done with the 5 stars in the class of 2025. Now, to be clear, I do think it's going to be different. Coach Cal has said so himself. He said it when he got to Arkansas. He said it before he even left Kentucky. He said, look, this era of bringing in 6, 7 freshmen, we can't do it anymore. And so I still believe that they'll probably retain a few players off this year's team. They're going to lose guys to the pros. That happens. But they'll retain a few players, and then they'll kind of try to figure out what's going on in the portal in April and May of next year. But I still think there's room for a couple more 5 stars, and I think Arkansas is actually in pretty good shape with a few of them. First guy I want to talk about, Caleb Wilson. Number 6 player in the class of 2025. He is a 6'9" forward, and very interesting story. First of all, was really highly regarded at this time last year, summer of 2024, coming off of his sophomore year. Had a little bit of an up and down junior year, but to his credit, had a very good summer playing on a very high-profile AAU team. He actually played with Cameron Boozer and Caden Boozer, the Boozer twins, Carlos Boozer's sons. And I think anybody who follows recruiting knows that Cameron Boozer is the number 2 player in the class of 2025, and many think he might be the best player in the class at least right now. Him and AJ DeBansa are 1 and 2. And I bring it up because what's impressed me about Caleb Wilson, 6'9", athletic, nice mid-range game, can stretch the floor. But what was so impressive was this was a kid that also proved over the summer he can play with other elite players and have success. He can play with other elite players and not have to dominate the ball, not have to be the focal point, not have to be me, and take 20 shots. And if you're going to play for Coach Cal, you got to be able to do that. Certainly, by the way, you go to the NBA. There's about 10, 12 superstars in the league, and everybody else has to fit in somewhere else. And so really talented player. His recruitment is still in the beginning stages, but he's another one. Cal identified him early in the class of 2025, and I think Arkansas is at least going to be in the mix down the stretch. The other player that to me is very intriguing in this class of 2025 that I don't think a lot of people are talking about right now is Coa Pete, the number 5 player in the class. And I think he's very much in play at Arkansas. So we talked about him when we did our list of the uncommitted 5 stars and where they're going to end up. But what I respect the heck out of this kid. First of all, he's from Arizona, 6'8", athletic, physical. For people who don't know, his brother plays in the NFL, was a first-round pick of the New Orleans Saints, Andrews Pete, several years ago. And so you could tell he's comfortable banging bodies down low. He was probably playing in the driveway with a future NFL offensive tackle. But at the same time, what has impressed me about this kid, I live on the West Coast, and he is a player that has been in the spotlight as a high-profile recruit in this class of 2025, basically since as long as they've been ranking players in the class of 2025. I remember hearing about this kid in the 8th grade, okay? And so why I'm impressed by that is because through all of this process, he has never taken a step back. He has never been anything other than one of the best players in this class. And I think that family, that group around him has done a good job of keeping things focused on basketball. He was really good in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and now heading into 12th grade, it's no different. And so I bring it up because he is another fascinating player. He's going to play in the NBA. He's going to be a one and done. And I think Arkansas is in as good a shape as anybody for him. Now, it's worth noting and I think this is important. He's one. I truly believe he is not committing until next spring, okay? Like I said, I think his family kind of gets it. They kind of understand how the process works. Again, his brother played football at Stanford, was a first-round NFL draft pick. And I think they get kind of, how the recruiting process works. And from my perspective, he is the kind of kid that he understands. I am a 5-star. I am a difference maker. I have the leverage. But at the same time, I also want to put myself in the best position. Listen, if you're a 4-star, if you're a 3-star, if you're an unrated player and you get an offer from that dream school of yours, guess what? You better commit right then and there, because they're either going to give it to somebody else or they're going to pull the offer and wait till the portal cycle comes next spring. And so I bring it up because Coa Pete's the opposite. He knows I'm a top 5 player. Wherever I want to go, they're going to want me. But what I've also been told about him and actually a couple players in this class, I think they saw what happened last spring, part of it involving John Calipari, where there was major not only roster turnover, but coaching turnover as well. And I think these elite high school players are going to get smarter with the recruiting process. Why am I going to commit somewhere in November when there's so much change from November to May in college basketball? Now, last year, the recruiting cycle may have been a little bit wonky because it all started with Andy Enfield leaving for SMU, which leads to Eric Musselman leaving for USC, which leads to John Calipari leaving for Arkansas, which leads to Mark Pope leaving to Kentucky, and Kevin Young, of course, closing that cycle with him going to BYU. But at the same time, I do think that because of this high-stakes NIL world where you always got to be raising money, you always got to be in position to get players late, I think we're going to see a lot of coaching turnover on a year-over-year basis. And so to bring it back to Coa Pete, and AJ DeBansa, by the way, and some of these other players of the class of 2025, I think they're sitting there saying, like, why am I going to commit now? Why don't I wait, make sure there's no major coaching upheaval at the places that I'm interested in? Arkansas certainly would not be one of those places. I don't think John Calipari is going to be out next year. And why don't I wait, see what the roster looks like, see where my fit comes in, rather than committing in September or October. And maybe they see a guy in the portal they like. Maybe the coach leaves. Maybe the assistant coach I'm comfortable with takes a head coaching job. So I don't expect him to commit anytime soon. But I do think that Arkansas is in the very short conversation with him, along with the Home State School of Arizona, maybe Duke, maybe one or two others. I think they're in better shape for him than most people think. So the focus today is Darius Acuff, but I am here to tell you this. I do not think this is the last of the big-time commitments for John Calipari in the class of 2025. Again, expect the focus to be on 2 to 3 players and filling in the portal, but they get Darius Acuff, and that is a great start to the class of 2025, which, again, leads to the million-dollar question. Can anybody stop the Big Pig Invasion? That is right. Calipari does it again. Get your shirts at AaronTorresOnline.com.